video I did yesterday because the sound, I had the vents turned on full blast and the microphone of the camera caught all the wind, so you couldn't hear half what I was saying. But it was a good enough topic. I thought I'd go back and do it again. So listen to part of a Joe Rogan podcast. I don't normally listen to Joe Rogan, but the title caught my eye. He had an author on who's written a book about Operation Paperclip, and I find Operation Paperclip to be fascinating for I think maybe a slightly different reason than maybe other people do. I've said before, I love listening to history or hearing about history, true history, the history that's kept from us, which I think there's a fair amount of. Operation Paperclip being one. From what I understand, it wasn't uncovered until the 80s when a Freedom of Information Act request was made by a different author than the one who was on Joe's show. This author, the one who did the original uncovering, she had asked for all these paperwork on it. They gave it to her and she wrote a book, but when they gave it to her, they also tacked her with a $125,000 bill for the Xeroxing of all the copies in a way to like financially destitute her so she couldn't publish the book, but she was able to anyways. Regardless, the information came out. If you've seen Winter Soldier, it's placed prominently in Winter Soldier, but it's a true operation. So what happened after World War II? The official story is, hey, when it finally got uncovered, anyways, this is what they fell back to. Well, we were in a race to get the best scientists to the U.S. instead of the Soviet Union. Of course, you could have just let them rot in jail. They were Nazis, but they didn't want to do that, right? So they grabbed a whole bunch of high-ranking Nazi scientists, and when I say a lot of them, they grabbed 1,400 is a low estimate, 1,400 Nazi scientists, and not like just low-ranking like grunts in the line. This is like one of them was the number 5 in the ranking of Nazis, like below Hitler, the fourth one down, number 5. These are high-ranking, really rotten, horrible people who had done horrible things in the name of science, right? They were just sadistic people doing like experiments like, gee, at what temperature does a human body freeze at? So we can test, at what air pressure do they die? So they were putting them in hyperbolic chambers and stuff like that. Those scientists, the ones who ran those experiments, the United States brought to America, the Pentagon brought to America, and put them in institutions like they were founding members of NASA. They were founding members of our modern vaccine program. They were founding members of our educational system, Department of Education. They were all over our government, not in low positions, but in founding positions for some of the most, trusted organizations within our current government. And I mean, that's, you can go crazy. That'll drive you crazy if you're wondering, how much influence did they have? Well, maybe they saw the light when they came over and they repented, or maybe they were kept in check by other, we want to think, this is a basic bias that human beings have. We want to think that people are generally as good as we are. It's hard for us to see real evil, even in the face of what Nazis did and all the documentation we have on what they did over there. It's so difficult for us to contemplate, but we couldn't have let that influence what happened here, right? Like we would never do that. And I've talked often to friends of mine about science, big S science versus small s science. Small s science being the pure, let's just come up with a hypothesis, test it against data, and decide what the outcome is. And then big S science, which is like a dogma or a religion. Like, well, once it's decided that science has said this, and science can't be wrong, and this is now established fact because science is saying so. Well, that's big S science that I don't buy into. It just says like I have a hard time with any kind of dogma, be it religion or political party, all those things. Those are the capital letter ones that I have a general distrust of, I suppose. But we've got these, like we think of scientists as kind-natured, wanting to. Rogan makes this point too. It echoes the way that I've always thought about it. We want to think of scientists as these arbiters of truth, these unbiased, unable to be influenced except for by facts and data, people who just try to discover things. But that's really not true. Some of these people have agendas. Some of these people are downright evil. right? And for some reason, we saw fit in the 50s to bring them. When I say that they were actually, some of them tried and convicted and put in jail, in the Nuremberg trials, and then quietly set free and brought to the United States, or taken out of the prisons and brought into our programs. Anyways, it sounds like a fascinating book. I'll try to find the link to the book and put it in the description here. And I'll put a link to that clip of the Joe Rogan podcast too, so you can watch the whole thing yourself and find out what I'm saying. Verify what I'm saying by listening to this. You probably want to read the book to verify. And even that's not verifying, because she's an author who could, for all we know, have doctored all of her information. But she's not the first person I've heard it from. And again, it's a fascinating piece of our history, and it ties back to the Marvel Universe in Winter Soldier. All right, folks, have a good morning. Cheers.